Hello there, Riderflex Nation. Steve Urban here with more career advice and job interviewing tips for you. And as a quick reminder, if you enjoy our podcast, please remember to subscribe to our channel and like the episodes. And on today's podcast, we have Chris Stakich, the CEO and chairman of the board for Rustic Pathways. Rustic Pathways is an education management company and has been a leader in the global teen adventure and community service travel programs since 1983. Let's talk about Rustic Pathways a little bit. Can you go a little deeper there for the listeners and just really talk about what they do and how, if you're interested in being a part of Rustic Pathways or how to sign up and kind of go deeper there?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm extremely passionate about the why behind Rustic Pathways. We are a student travel organization that takes typically high school students to remote villages in developing countries to do some type of community-based work.
Gotcha.
And there's a ton to say about that, ton of design that goes into that. The why behind that, we believe that travel is an essential part of every education. And if you look at a student growing up in 2019 in the world that they're going to enter, we believe that it is absolutely essential that they get out in the world, they live with people, live with them in their homes, who practice different religions, speak different languages, eat different foods, listen to different music, have different daily living habits. And, we all sort of grow up with these assumptions about how our world works. But then when you get out there and live with people, it breaks down the assumptions of how the world works, and it opens you up not to just the differences, but to then the similarities between people and how people, they just want to be peaceful and happy and enjoy each other's company and have good food and some restful time and have some laughs and listen to music. And so, we as an organization, we're highly focused on creating those cultural bridges through full immersion programs. And the focus of the days is to provide some type of valuable community development work. And a lot of it does relate to construction, building houses, building community centers, building community gardens. And all of that development design is done through inside out, working with communities and through, the best practices in international development plans.
That's great. So is it for high schoolers, college students, junior, like what age ranges?
Sure. So we have students typically ages 12 to 18.
Okay.
So, 7th or 8th grade through high school. The 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th graders is definitely sort of the highest majority of students. For the college age students, we work with an organization called Verto Education. And through those programs, you can go on a Rustic Pathways type of experience. We run the experiences for a semester and get full college credit for it. And then we are excited to be launching our family travel division likely this September. And
great.
the number one thing we hear from students is that program completely changed my life. And the number one thing we hear from parents is, I don't know what you did with my daughter over 2 weeks, but she came home humble and self-aware and helpful around the house. And so parents have naturally wanted to they want to go to the places their kids have been and meet these people and have these same experiences. And we're now just poised to start doing that with families.
I see. I just thought about something as you were describing the age range. It's stressful enough to be a CEO of a company, right? That alone is stressful enough. But then to have the responsibility of other people's children traveling out of the country.
Yes. And let me say, I've had countless home visits with families where I sit down and talk with the parents and their son or daughter trying to find the best fit for them. And, I've always said to people, we take that responsibility unbelievably serious. We've had lots, we do have a lot of famous Hollywood people who've sent their kids with us and a lot of huge New York banking people and a lot of the DC politicians, a lot of big name people. And, very rare, usually you have to work through the assistant of the assistant. where, when
Gotcha.
they're sending their son or daughter, they say, here's my cell phone number. If anything happens to her, you call me. And we take that responsibility super seriously. And I can say it was invaluable having my own kids, because the idea of something happening to my own kids is unthinkable.
Right.
And so, it's a big piece of it.
Big responsibility. I want to switch gears here just a little bit. Lots of entrepreneurs and people aspiring to either own their own business or be a CEO. They listen to this podcast. And so in your case, I'd like to ask, what were some of the toughest hurdles early on for you as a first-time CEO? What were some of those major hurdles or big-time learning pieces when you first entered that position?
Sure. I would say there's two things that come to mind, sort of like two parts of this. One was the actual ins and outs of the company. And so I basically took over what would look and feel like a 30-year-old family-run business.
Oh, okay.
And I wanted to supercharge it. I'm highly passionate about the impact we create. And so I want more and more and more and more students having this experience. And so a big part of what I did the first 18 months was sort of reorganizing our team and creating a very real strategy on paper with, real quarterly objectives, and tying those to key executives in the company, and having those objectives waterfall down into individual tasks that people are doing on a weekly, monthly basis, and then creating all the reporting structure around it, and then creating the meeting rhythm where we have quarterly calls and we have monthly management meetings and weekly one-on-ones with our teams, and moving our accounting over into accrual accounting, and just a lot of the formality of the structure needed to be created.
I see.
It was a really fun process. I had the opportunity to talk with consultants and read tons of books and figure out what I thought the best framework for that was. That was exciting. It was tough. The second part is sort of the people component. And they say when you become a CEO, you are sort of out on an island, and you really are.
You really are. Yeah, that's true.
I've worked here 17 years, and some of my wife used to work here. A ton of my best buddies worked here. Part of the challenge, I had to fire some of my best buddies. And, people that I was just good friends with, who I was sort of peers with, all of a sudden I was the boss. And, you're not in the inside jokes. People, are probably making fun of you behind your back.
So true. True.
And then when the company goes through challenges, it's like,
it's on you. It's on you.
It's on you. Time to look in the mirror and take responsibility, take ownership. And there's a lot of pressure. I would say a lot of stress, a lot of responsibility, and just learning how to cope with that emotionally is super duper important. Don't bring that stuff home to your kids and wife.
I think that's key right there, what you just touched on. It's highly stressful. And until you've been a CEO and you're responsible for hundreds of people, you really just don't understand. It's really hard to describe until you live it. But what you just said, you got to be able to disconnect that stress a little bit when you come home for your family, or else it can just eat up your life. That's a great tip right there.
Yep.
We truly hope you find our material helpful and entertaining. And while our podcast can be heard across most platforms, including iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, and SoundCloud, you can become a supporter of this podcast by visiting our show on the platform Anchor FM. That's anchor.fm/Riderflex. You can also send us your questions or suggested topics for future episodes to the email address podcast@riderflex.com. Or drop us a voicemail at 888-964-5876, extension 710. Visit riderflex.com to learn more about us. Thanks so much for listening, folks, and have a great day.